Hey, it's Philmeyer. Let's talk about Gunbreaker on controller. Bravery. Precision. Determination. You are a Gunbreaker. I started the tank layout controller series with Paladin, which gave me a layout template that I followed for my Gunbreaker setup. If you haven't seen the Paladin video yet, I'd recommend checking it out, especially if you're interested in the reasoning behind common role action placements. If you liked my Paladin layout, you'll feel right at home here, but if not, Gunbreaker will look just as cursed. My layout prioritizes placing global cooldown actions that make up the core attack rotation on the base hotbar's face buttons, so I can more easily maintain character movement while hitting those buttons. Just like Paladin, I'm using a dual set layout that requires at least 3 hotbars. The first set focuses on single target attacks, and the second on area attacks. I switch between these by tapping the right shoulder button, which is a behavior you can set up in character configuration settings. Let's walk through the action placements, then take a look at some tweaks you might want to consider. The right trigger's face buttons is where I've placed Gunbreaker's main global cooldown attacks. On the single target bar, these are Keen Edge, Brutal Shell, and Solid Barrel. On the AoE bar, they swap to Demon Slice, Demon Slaughter, and Lightning Shot. Now, Lightning Shot is a ranged attack that isn't AoE specific, but I keep it here because Gunbreaker has fewer AoE attacks than single target. This works out well during dungeon runs, as it's great for grabbing aggro before following up with area attacks. Keeping Lightning Shot on this slot does mean you'll be switching hotbar sets more often than with other jobs, which increases the learning curve for this layout. Later I'll show some alternatives if this feels clunky. Bowshock sits on the bottom face button in both hotbar sets. It's an off-global damage over time attack, and keeping it here makes it easy to weave in while moving. On the D-pad I placed core off-global actions so they can be more easily used once stationary. Interject and Low Blow take the top and bottom slots for quick interrupts. Blasting Zone and No Mercy take the right and left buttons. After activation, No Mercy changes into Sonic Break, a single target global cooldown attack, so keeping it on this side of the base hotbar feels intuitive and matches the behavior of Fight or Flight for Paladin. Blasting Zone does have a shorter cooldown than Bowshock, allowing it to be used more frequently. However, Bowshock is especially useful for drawing enemy aggro while moving through a dungeon. For that reason, I prioritized Bowshock over Blasting Zone on a face button, even in the single target set, in order to maintain consistency. On the left trigger, the single target and AoE sets diverge. The cartridge attacks Burst Strike and Gnashing Fang sit on the single target face buttons. Faded Circle replaces Burst Strike on the AoE bar. Gnashing Fang has no true AoE counterpart, but at higher levels Bloodfest will change into a sequence of powerful targeted strikes with splash damage, making it effective in both single target and AoE situations. For this reason, I've swapped Gnashing Fang for Bloodfest on the AoE bar. Bloodfest also appears on the single target bar placed on the top D-pad button to allow quick access for generating cartridge charges. This setup gives me flexibility. When stationary, I can trigger Bloodfest and its follow-up attacks directly from the single target bar. And when in motion, I can switch to the AoE set and activate them from there. Later, I'll outline an alternative configuration I considered before settling on this approach. Continuation is on the bottom face button across both sets, since it morphs into additional off-global attacks that should be weaved between cartridge attacks. Gunbreaker's Gap Closer Trajectory goes on the right face button. I prefer to keep gap closers on this button across all of my job layouts whenever possible. Keeping it on a face button allows me to smoothly maintain character movement right up until I'm ready to activate the action. On 3 of the D-pad slots is where I placed mitigations with the fastest cooldowns. Reprisal and Rampart are tank roll actions, and their placements match my Paladin layout. The right D-pad button is used for the Gunbreaker specific action, Camouflage. Moving up to the double cross hotbar's right trigger, I've assigned Double Down to the left face button. This ability is a powerful cartridge attack valuable for both area and focused engagements. It's somewhat unusual in that it follows the global action queue while also carrying a longer cooldown. For that reason, placing it on the double cross hotbar feels most appropriate. Provoke takes the bottom face button, matching my Paladin layout and my other upcoming tank layouts. Nebula and Super Bolid occupy the remaining face buttons. Because these mitigations have longer cooldowns than most of Gunbreaker's kit, placing them on the double cross hotbar feels appropriate. Keeping them on face buttons also improves accessibility while moving, though this is more of a convenience than a necessity for these actions. Arm's Length and Shirk take their spots on the D-pad, matching my tank template. You could opt to swap the direct shirk action for a macro instead, removing the need to target your co-tank when in a full party. But just be careful if you choose to do this, as pressing this button by mistake in a light party would unload aggro on your healer instead. Let's move to the left side of the double cross hotbar, where I've placed Royal Guard on the left D-pad slot. Royal Guard doesn't need to be activated all that often, so this spot works fine. On the left face buttons is where Gunbreaker's additional party defense tools go. Heart of Light is an area mitigation that assists nearby party members. It takes the bottom face button, matching a similar action for Paladin, as well as several of my other job layouts. Heart of Corundum and Aurora take 2 additional buttons. This is especially useful when using them on myself, or when assist targeting a co-tank in a full party, or even helping the main tank in alliance raids. With one more face button free, I've slotted an emergency potion for quick use. On the analog stick buttons, I keep my sprint and assist targeting macros standardized across all jobs using macro slots 98 and 99. These can be configured through system configuration settings. On one half of the extended cross hotbar, I place additional common actions such as limit break, target lock-on, and other targeting functions. The extended cross hotbar itself can be set up in character configuration settings. That's my Gunbreaker layout, designed to stay compatible with my other job layouts while maintaining character movement during the core attack rotation. With several hotbar slots still free, there's room to add consumables or customize further. Earlier I mentioned some alternatives you might want to consider. Because Gunbreaker's single target and AoE cartridge actions aren't symmetrical, the hotbar sets behave differently, notably with Bloodfest occupying different slots in each. If this feels awkward, one option is to swap Bloodfest with Double Down on the double cross hotbar. Since Double Down is a single attack rather than a multi-step sequence, I chose not to take this approach, as Bloodfest button is used repeatedly during the Reign of Beast chain, and I find this works best from the base hotbar. For me, it's preferable to switch hotbar sets to maintain mobility rather than to hit the combo from the double cross hotbar. Another consideration is Lightning Shot. Because it's slotted on the AoE bar, you'll be switching sets more often when going between single target melee and ranged attacks. I still find that this arrangement works best for me, but if it would feel too busy for you, here are 2 alternatives. You could move Lightning Shot to a double cross hotbar face button instead, which may require shifting another action to a D-pad slot to make room. Or you could instead choose to move Trajectory to the extended hotbar, which would free its original spot in the base hotbar for Lightning Shot. Whichever route you choose will likely take some practice to get comfortable with. Before closing out, I'll run through a short combat rotation to demonstrate the layout's flow. The aim is to show function in a typical battle and not to go for peak DPS. Alright everyone, thanks for watching the video. If this helped you out, a thumbs up on your way out is always appreciated. My next tank layout video will cover Dark Knight. I hope you'll tune in for that. See you in the next one.